Krajem ožujka 2014. u Zagrebu je održana prva konferencija o dobroj ekonomiji u organizaciji ZMAG-a, što je kratica za Zelenu mrežu aktivističkih grupa. Dobra ekonomija bila bi ekonomija koja podupire kvalitetu života u čitavoj zajednici, koja nudi obilje prilika za zadovoljenje potreba bez ugrožavanja drugih, koja pravedno dijeli i koristi resurse njegujući solidarnost, koja poštuje održivost ekosustava. Na tom tragu na konferenciji o dobroj ekonomiji moglo se saznati kako funkcionira re-ekonomija, to jest povratak ekonomije lokalnoj zajednici, i što su to tranzicijski gradovi. Gdje i kako funkcioniraju lokalne i alternativne valute, kako su ustrojeni etički fondovi i etičke banke, kako funkcionira sustav koji se naziva ekonomija za opće dobro. Prva konferencija o dobroj ekonomiji održana u Zagrebu predstavila je teme koje su još uvijek na rubu koječega, pa i na rubu znanosti.
Ovo je prva konferencija o dobroj ekonomiji. Dvije stvari koje možda treba tu ispričati. Dobra ekonomija je ono što smo rekli sa re-ekonomiji, dakle vraćanje ekonomije u ruke zajednice i opisivanje i prikazivanje modela koji funkcioniraju u zajednicama na svijetu, a i u Hrvatskoj. A isto tako smo je nazvali prva jer ne želimo stati na ovom, želimo da to bude nešto kontinuitetu i zapravo da svake godine nešto veće organiziramo. Cilj je zapravo pokriti što više ekonomskih modela koje zajednice koriste i koje bi spadale u tu, što smo mi nazvali, dobru ekonomiju. Dakle, to može biti sve od društvenog poduzetništva, etičkih banaka, fondova, ulaganja koje pomažu malim proizvođačima ili bilo kome ko želi nešto zapravo ponuditi, a nema za to sredstva. Isto tako, jako bitna stvar za nas je da smo prvi put javno počeli pričati u Hrvatskoj o sustavima neformalne razmjene koji mogu, recimo, biti jedna alternativna valuta koju jedna regija može koristiti ili jedan grad. A čak ćemo se pozabaviti i prikazivanjima, pričanjima o nekim primjerima dobre prakse u Hrvatskoj i pokušat ćemo čak dobiti jednu kratku pravnu analizu koja bi nam rekla kamo sa neformalnom, a dobrom ekonomijom u Hrvatskoj. Marie Brandt je iz Francuske, iz kolektiva za takozvanu građansku tranziciju. Isto tako je iz projekta TAMA. TAMA znači there are many alternatives. Znači postoji više ekonomskih alternativa i ono što oni rade je zapravo da povezuju male proizvođače i etičke fondove, omogućuju malim proizvođačima i udrugama zapravo da financiraju svoje stvari koje ne mogu preko komercijalnih banaka.
I consider good economy that is useful to society, so to satisfy, for example, basic needs of people, how to get a house, how to get food, how to get things to satisfy your basic needs and not things that are artificially created through marketing, through advertising, etc. So as well, good economy for me is economy that satisfies the needs also of those who produce the products or services. So for example, if I'm in agriculture, if I eat food that's being done by little children in Africa, or if I buy a lot of electronic stuff that are done by children in China, I don't consider this as good economy. We need to find a way for also the people who produce the food, so for example, who do organic food in farms, to also earn fairly their living with those products. Well, ethical banks, you're right, is what it should be. Normally a bank should be financing projects which are useful to society, so which comes back to good economy. But we know what has happened over the last 40 years. Now the banks are just here to speculate money, put them, and so that people get rich people get richer and poor people get poorer. So that's not what a bank should be about. So I'll take the example of La Nef, a bank which I know in France, which has been created in 1988. And basically the guys who created that, they didn't find money with traditional banks to finance their organic farm, an alternative school, etc. So they started gathering money around their friends and then loaning it. So, and then they had to become a kind of financial institution to be with the rules. So basically they collect money from citizens like me. I put my savings in that bank. And they can say, oh, I want my money to be loaned to projects which are in ecology, in social development, or in culture, for example. And then the bank loans money to those projects. So, for example, they finance a lot of organic farming, a lot of organic ships, of renewable energy projects, of new kind of cultural projects, etc. We also sensibilize the general public on issues. And every year they publish the list of all loans they gave. So actually I have it because I've put my savings there. I have a list and I know exactly what my money was used for, and it was not used to speculate and etc. So for me that's it. An ethical bank is about transparency. First, it's about also democracy. I'm an owner of that bank. Even if I have only 60 euro share, I've got one voice. So every year I can accept or not accept the policy of the bank, the strategy. If I want, I can say, I can fire the managing director of the bank. Not only me, obviously, but with my vote, I have also a power to validate the orientation and the strategy of that bank. So democracy, transparency, and loans only to useful projects to society, to transition, for example.
U Francuskoj, koja ima 60 milijuna stanovnika, danas između 200 i 500 tisuća ljudi participira u etičkim bankama i etičkim fondovima. Početak prije 20 godina bio je težak i spor, ali danas je, zahvaljujući razgranatom članstvu, sve brži.
La Nef, the bank I know, we are 35,000 people, we are owners. So not all 35,000 people will be involved in the same way, but in theory I've got a vote. So every year there's a general assembly of that bank, and you can go there. So there's about, 500 people who go there every year, not 35,000. But you could also vote on the internet. For the resolutions of the orientation of the bank. But that's not enough, because then a lot of people could say, I don't vote, so it's not true democracy. So there have also, I think, 4 people. There are 60 people in that bank. It's quite small. But 4 of them are employed full-time to actually help groups around France, which are people who are not paid, but who are really believing that this project is interesting. And these people also are there to explain to other people, like me, if I don't have a role, what the bank is about, and also to find projects to finance. They do a kind of filter, and they say, oh, we can finance that project next to my house, it's really good. And that's how they are involved in democracy. So there are real governance processes in place so that everybody can really have that one voice if they want, obviously.
Osim etičkih banaka, postoje i etički fondovi.
Ethical funds are more there to finance the capital part. So to help you start with the capital. So I'll give you one example. Is an organization called Terre de Lien, which means earth link or land connection. And basically it's all very regulated. They can do a public offer to give money, so to invest money. Yeah? It's an investment. You invest it in shares in that fund. So I say, okay, I give 1,000 euro. Maybe when I go in 5 years, I'll still get 1,000 euro, maybe a little dividend, but it's tiny. And that money will be used by that fund to buy farms, to buy land for farming. Because in France, the big problem is that when you want to start a farm, buying land is becoming very expensive. Because all the promoters want to buy it to build houses and buildings and offices. So it's very difficult. So these guys actually buy land, and then they lend it to farmers who want to start. So over the last 10 years in France, they've managed to collect 30 million euros towards citizens like you and me. I just say, okay, instead of putting it in the bank, I know I won't use it for a few years, so I give 1,000 euros there. And I know it will be used to buy farms and to start up organic farmers. So that's an example. A second example is the same kind of thing for energy. It's a fund called Shared Energy. They only started 2-3 years ago, and they've already collected 3 million euros. So these are for citizens who want to start a renewable energy project in their community. So, for example, in my village, I say, oh, the roof of the school is really good, it's south, and maybe we could put some solar panels there and produce our own energy so that the bill of the school, the electricity bill is cheaper. Maybe I can make some money with it to finance other things in the school. So then to finance that project, that money being put by the citizens can be used to finance that project. The objective of what I do now is try to put these initiatives together. They now start to work together because they were all in their own field, agriculture, energy, transport, etc. And to see what we can do together to bring more people to say, okay, what can I do as a citizen? Can I involve myself in a workshop to recycle bags, or can I put my money in energy because I'm against nuclear energy, I'm scared of nuclear energy, so I want to invest in renewable energies, for example. So I think each of us, according to your beliefs and your emotions, or you're scared that your kids are going to eat food with loads of chemicals, etc. So maybe you will try to create a community-supported organization that will buy good food to farmers around you. There's loads of ways that people can involve themselves, and it has to be not obliged, but like, oh, I feel there. It's something that's the way that the world is working at the moment. There are things that are more touching us here in our emotions than others, and I think that's where people can start. And then when you start, you can't stop because you realize more and more things and you think, oh, I can do more things, I think.
John Rogers je jedan, ne želim reći autoritet, ali možda svjetski tata-mata znalac za sustave neformalne razmjene. Jedna stvar kojom se bavi, dakle ne samo promoviranje sustava razmjene, nego i istraživanje. On je pronašao, na primjer, da po 4000 lokalnih valuta postoji već na svijetu.
Local currencies, from the historical point of view, are normal. In Europe, for thousands of years, there were local currencies. Only in the 19th century did the national currencies emerge with central banking and globalization. But in the 20th century, there were various experiments with local currencies, particularly in the 1930s in the Great Depression. There were experiments in Germany and Austria and the USA, but all of those except one were closed down. And the one that survived is the Via Bank in Switzerland, which is now 80 years old this year. And that is the largest non-national currency in the world. It's a regional currency that serves 60,000 businesses all over Switzerland and has $1 billion turnover in €1 billion equivalent turnover in the Via currency. Now, as well as Via, there's been a worldwide movement of business-to-business exchange systems. There are many hundreds of those, and that's a big industry. And the idea of that industry is to exchange spare capacity amongst businesses. So many businesses don't work at 100% capacity. Say a restaurant has seats that are underused, or a theatre has seats that are underused. They can put those into a local currency system, and people who have local currency can access those goods and services. So the worldwide business-to-business exchange system movement is quite big. So that's on the commercial side. But on the other side, there are community-based systems started by citizens, and they tend to be much smaller, and they're working at a very local community level between neighbours, where people do exchanges with each other, so people babysitting, walk the dog, clean the house, teach the piano, all those kinds of skills. And the reality is, there have been thousands of experiments with these systems all over the world, but the reality is that very many of them fail. And the reasons they fail are many. Often they depend on a lot of volunteer effort, and so the volunteers move on, or they burn out, or whatever. Some systems have paid organizers, but then they are dependent on finding finance from government or from foundations or whatever. Some systems fail because they don't do good governance, they don't have good decision-making structures, or a good constitution, or good conflict resolution mechanisms. And some systems fail just because they don't cover their own running costs. And there are various ways of solving that problem. So the reality is that a few systems have survived that have had very good management, very good governance, and good cost recovery. So I mentioned the Via Bank, which is 80 years old. Apart from that, the best examples would be the Chiemgauer in Germany, which is now 10 years old. And the Chiemgauer is a system serving businesses in Bavaria, in one region. And the idea of that currency is to keep the buying power, the purchasing power, in that region. So that currency you have to buy with euros, and then the currency goes into circulation, the local currency. At any point, the businesses can exchange their local Chiemgauer currency back into euros, which gives them the security to take part in the system. So when the system started 10 years ago, many businesses would redeem their Chiemgauer straight back into euros, because they weren't sure whether they could trust the system. Now the system is 10 years old and has a good track record, people trust it. Many businesses do not exchange their Chiemgauer back into euro, but they keep the Chiemgauer circulating, and they circulate many times. They estimate that the Chiemgauer circulates something like 4 times more than the euro in that region. In England, there have been various experiments with local currencies over the last few years as part of what is called the transition movement, which is a movement trying to get grassroots change from the bottom up. So we've had currencies in various towns like Totnes and Lewis. The most successful ones have been in Brixton in London and recently in Bristol in the southwest of England. And in that currency, the Lord Mayor of the city takes 100% of his salary in local currency, which is pretty impressive. You can also pay your local taxes with the Brixton and Bristol pounds. And also in Austria, there is another very successful system now 18 years old called in Vorarlberg in Austria. And also there they were the first system in Europe where you could pay your local taxes with the local currency. So some of the examples I just mentioned, like the Chiemgauer and the Bristol pound, they are, as you say, dependent on national currency because they're tied to the national currency. You have to buy the local currency with national currency, which clearly ties the local currency to problems in the national currency like inflation. So that's one model of local currency, but there is another model of local currency which has been very popular, and that's called a mutual credit system. So you have a circle of people who are willing to help each other, to give goods and services to each other. So at the beginning of that system, when everyone joins, everybody's account balance is 0, right? And when people start doing stuff for each other, they start earning plus points for giving service to someone, and then other people who've received service go into minus points. So the idea is that at any point in time, all of the plus and the minus balances balance out to 0, okay? This is called a mutual credit system. These are very popular around the world in different forms. You find them in different countries, local exchange trading systems or time banks, or in German Tauschring, or in France called the Cell. And these are exchange rings of people, but often those systems don't grow very big. They tend to be relatively small, 100 or 200 people who know each other well, who exchange. Very few systems have grown larger than that to thousands. Maybe in Australia there was one with 2,000 members, but that's very much an exception. But the strength of these systems, this mutual credit system, is that we don't need national money. We don't need to tie it to national money. We might say that our points in our local mutual credit system, we could value them the same as the national currency. So if I normally do a job for £10 an hour, I might do it then for 10 local units per hour. But we don't have to buy the local currency with national currency or exchange it back into national currency. If I am willing to work to give you my service, then I have the right to earn local currency, and those credits then go into circulation around that circle of people, and they can only be used in that circle of people, so they can't leak out into any other community like a leaky bucket like the euros do or the national currencies. So in theory, a mutual credit system is a very, very strong system. But like I say, to date, very few of them have grown to any kind of scale. If we look back over the long evolution of money over many thousands of years, the core function of money was always as a medium of exchange to help us to trade goods and services with each other. And the function of money as a tool for speculation, for making profit, was relatively limited historically to traders and goldsmiths and the rest of it. But it's only really since the 19th century and globalization and the kind of tools of central banking and stock markets and all the rest of it that the casino economy that we now have, which is worth trillions and trillions of dollars a day, we couldn't have imagined that historically. But that's now our present reality, where this speculation function of money has almost taken over from the medium of exchange function of money. So what we can do about that with designing these new kinds of currencies is to put a new focus again on money as a medium of exchange and not as a medium of speculation or even a medium of savings. It can have a limited savings function, but its main function is as a medium of exchange to encourage trade. Now, I run workshops with people called the People Money Game, and we play a game together. And what I do in the first round of the game, I simply ask people, write down 3 underused resources that you personally have. Maybe 3 skills or 3 things that you have. So, for instance, I can do storytelling, I can teach the piano, I can teach people English, yeah? So I ask people to write down their underused skills and resources. And then I ask them to write down 3 unmet needs that they have. So maybe I need wood for my wood-burning stove, I want to buy vegetables from somebody, and I need marketing advice, yeah? So people write down these 3 resources and these 3 needs in the workshop, and then we go around the room and we find matches between people. And it's always amazing to me, even in the group of 10 people, people will find a match.
Let's stop the game. So now the banker came back 1 year after, please give me back my money.
I deliberately dramatize it to kind of bring it home. This is the reality of our present system.
Yes.
It's aggressive.
It's aggressive.
Very nice, thank you.
Okay, and what the workshop does is it makes people realize so after that, after we've done that exercise, we then introduce a currency and say, okay, if we had a currency to help you match up these underused resources and unmet needs, how would that be? And what does it look like when we introduce different kinds of currency? So if we introduce an interest-bearing currency, everybody starts getting competitive and fighting each other because they know they have to pay the interest on the money they're earning. And then we introduce a currency without interest, and then we introduce a currency like the mutual system that I described earlier. So in the workshop, people's consciousness is raised about what is the core function of money. It's here to match these underused resources with unmet needs. And when we keep the focus on that, then I think we'll see new systems that are much more powerful and much more useful to people in their own communities or in their own regions. And actually, the experience of local currencies shows the systems that do print their own notes and put them into circulation. One system in the States, the Berkshires, it's the most successful system in the States. They told me that in their 8 years of operation, they've had 1 case of somebody trying to forge a note. The Chiemgauer system I mentioned earlier in Germany has had, in 10 years, no cases of forgery. And Christian Galleri told us yesterday it's actually not worth anyone's while to try and forge a note because it costs you a lot of euros to actually forge a Chiemgauer note. The Bristol pound in England, they use the same paper that Bank of England notes are printed on with all the same security features. So actually, it's very difficult to counterfeit those kind of notes, right? That's the one story. On the other hand, we have the mutual credit systems, and actually mutual credit systems normally don't print notes. They simply record everyone's exchanges on a computer database, or these days on an internet website. And so long as you have good governance and control of the accounting system, then again, nobody can forge exchanges in that system. So actually, it's very, very difficult to abuse these systems, but so long as they have good governance, and the governance is under local control. That is also a key point, that if you like, it's ownership of the means of exchange, as Marx might have said. So that the local people own the medium of exchange, and they govern it, and they come up with the rules that govern the running of that system. Again, the Chiemgauer system that I mentioned in Germany is really the only modern example that uses this so-called demurrage mechanism, the same mechanism that they used in Virgil in the 1930s. And the idea of that goes back to a German theorist called Silvio Gesell 100 years ago, and he said that everything else in nature decays. The only thing that doesn't decay is money, right? So he proposed the idea of a money that should decay. So in the 30s, they started experimenting with that idea. So the idea is that every few months, the money loses a little bit of its value. The result of that is that nobody wants to keep money that is losing its value. So in contrast to normal money, which people are trying to get hold of and hoard, with this money, they actually want to give it away again as quickly as possible because it's losing value. And so what happens is actually the circulation rate of the money increases. And so however many notes you've issued in circulation, because they're circulating faster, they're doing more economic good along the way. So actually you need less actual money in circulation. The point is how many times it changes hands. So in Chiemgau, they still have little, what they call Gutscheine. I think I have one here. I think he gave me one yesterday, or maybe not. Yeah, here it is. So you see on the back of this Chiemgau note here, you can see there are the different months of the year, every quarter, and what you do is you fix a little stamp to that. So to keep this currency in circulation, you have to buy a stamp, and that costs you in euros, and that keeps this local currency in circulation. So you buy the stamp, and it's then valid for another 3 months, and it keeps on circulation. But also alongside these physical tokens, the Chiemgauer also has electronic currency. And in fact, the businesses in Chiemgau, I think he said that 2/3 of the businesses used the electronic currency rather than the physical circulating notes. So they simply do the same mechanism, but on the electronic systems. And of course, these days we now have mobile apps, and the Bristol and Brixton Pound are experimenting with mobile phone-based currency, and they're innovating even ahead of the banks in that. So it's a very interesting field. It's constantly in development. And the system that most interests me that's now happening, this year the city of Nantes in northern France is launching a mutual credit-based currency, and it will be the first city government in Europe, as far as I know, to launch its own currency. And it will be backed by a 100-year-old local bank, the Crédit Municipal, so that will do the banking services. But the good thing will be that citizens of the city of Nantes will be able to pay for their bus tickets, pay for their tram tickets, pay for car parking in the city, and pay for a range of government services in the local government. And it will involve local government and businesses and citizens. So that is actually a very innovative currency if it works, and I'm very interested to see what actually happens in Nantes.
Karl-Heinz Slapši dolazi iz Graca i on je iz organizacije koja se zove Ekonomija za opće dobro. Ono što oni rade je zapravo podržavaju poslovne subjekte, poduzeća u tome da razviju društveno korisne modele koji su ujedno i etički i participativni za ljude u zajednici, isto tako korisni za okoliš.
The idea of the economy of common good is based on the idea of power, is based on the idea of maximizing profit. We changed this idea from maximizing profit to maximizing the common good. There are different possibilities to measure something. The GDP is one possibility to measure. What we have is the common good balance sheet. So in our idea, that means that every company make, beside of the finance balance sheet, a common good balance sheet. This common good balance sheet based on 17 indicators, and these indicators show how good a company is. So it is beside from the idea of CSR project. CSR means corporate social responsibility project, what every company, big company, do at the moment. It is based on 7 indicators. They really show how you act and what are you doing for this common good. And our idea is that beside of the finance balance sheet, every company has this. And then the customer can say and can see what the company is really doing for all of us. 17 indicators shows, for example, how green you are. This shows how does your employees are satisfied with you. They show us how green your projects or your products are. They show us, for example, what are you doing with transport, with logistics. They show us all what is in your company. Oh, the idea is not new. The idea is you find the word of common good from Aristoteles. You find it in Cicero. You find it in Thomas from Aquin. And the idea of to do something for all of us, for the common good, is not new. What new is the way how we act in this idea of common good economy. New is to have this balance sheet and to show exactly what companies are doing. Economy of Common Good was founded 2010 based on a book of Christian Felber. Christian Felber wrote the book about economy of common good, and then more and more people come all over, first in Austria, then in Germany, and now in 8 other countries, and follow this idea. And in the meantime, we have about 7,500 people, organizations, as well as politicians. They follow the idea. Economy of common good shows us is we are running for a good life, and a good life in the economy as well. We have a trading company in Upper Austria. She has about 250 employees. And what did they find out in the balance sheet is that after they do this, they go more into use the producers. They just changed their producers. They had producers all over Austria, and they reduced their producers just on the region, maximum around 100 kilometers of them. Why do they do this? They do this, of course, they save money on one hand in case of transport and logistic costs, but on the other hand, the money stay in the region. And this was very clear that after they do this balance sheet and after they talk with their customers as well, they talk with their employees, that they should go into that direction to be more regional and use more the regional possibilities do they have. At the moment, their motivation, I'm sure, is to follow the idea of to do something good. Companies and company owner also wouldn't have the feeling that we are the bad one because we are just the economy. They would like to have the feeling that we create a future for our kids as well.
Christian Keller je čovjek koji dolazi iz Bavarske i koji je pokrenuo jedan od najuspješnijih sistema regionalne valute. Znači, dolazi iz regije Chiemgau, valuta se zove Chiemgauer, ima više od 3000 korisnika.
I was very young, I was 16 when I read a book from Silvio Gesell about money, and it inspired me, and I saw we have to change the money system. And that was so original. And when I studied economics, I discussed with professors and others, and we founded a group, and we built a concept about a local currency. In the beginning, it was impossible to introduce. We started in Munich, and everybody said, "You're crazy." And then I went to a Waldorf school at the Lake Chiemsee at Prien, and then we started the project with. I introduced the idea to students, female students, and they said, "Let's try it." And we asked parents of the school if they are willing to take part, and we asked businesses if they want to accept the currency, and most of them were enthusiastic and said, "Okay, let's try it." They were open-minded, and then we started with only 20 businesses and 30 consumers, and it worked quite good. And then on this basis, it has grown. The name of the local currency is Chiemgauer. We have sticked it to the euro. It's 1 Chiemgau is 1 euro. So we have 1 and 2 and 20, 10 and 5 and 50. So it's always 1 to euro. And we started 2003 in the beginning, at 12 years ago. And the idea was to promote the school with the local currency and to promote businesses around the Lake Chiemsee. And the name is Chiemgauer because of the region, lake called Chiemsee. The region is called Chiemgau, and there are two districts, Traunstein and Rosenheim, and it's an area with 500,000 people. And today about 630 businesses are accepting Chiemgauer, and 3,000 consumers are paying with the local money. And we have 250 charities who are promoted with the Chiemgauer. This little marks has a purpose that people spend the money and not to hoard it. Every quarter you have to pay 2% of the value of the money, and then when you pay 2 cents for the 1 Chiemgauer and stick the stamp on the money, then it's valid another 3 months. And because of this aging function, nobody hoards it. You spend it again. And if you have euro in your pocket or national currency in your pocket and Chiemgauer, you spend Chiemgauer faster than euro. And the Chiemgauer is 3 times faster than the euro. We see that when consumers change into Chiemgauer and spend it to businesses, the businesses are more aware of using the local money in the region, and they use it locally and they spend it, and it's going faster, and the turnover is increasing for the businesses. Many businesses telling us they have an increased turnover, and so they are stabilized and they can employ more workers. The effect on the whole economy is small, but the effect on the businesses are quite good. There are 2 types of local currency. Some are created by loans and then created out of nothing, and that's very good. But we decided for another type to connect it to the global currency or the euro currency because it's easier to handle for the businesses. Because when some business has too much of the local currency, they can change back into euro, and they pay a fee of 5%. And so we have an obstacle to the Chiemgauer of 5%, and they can decide, and it's more sensible to use it locally, of course, because it's cheaper. But they are not isolated. They are integrated in the euro zone, and they can change from Chiemgauer to euro or from euro to Chiemgauer. The other advantage is that we can integrate consumers which doesn't have income in the local currency, but they can use the euro to change it into Chiemgauer, and those they can take part. The vision would be that half of the economy would be in local currency and half would be in the euro currency. That could be a balance, because it's important to produce energy and food and transport or building homes in the region. But you also have to have global products like cars or like computers. So I think it would be sensible to have 50% local and 50% global.
Frances Northrop je žena koja je došla iz Totnesa, malog grada u Velikoj Britaniji. Ona je jedna od ljudi koja radi baš konkretne stvari u sklopu organizacije Transition Network, ali baš radi u zajednici. Dakle, oživljavanje zajednice, razmišljanje o novim ekonomskim aktivnostima koje bi zapravo pomogle i ljudima koji su siromašni. Naprimjer, to je mali gradić koji dosta živi od turizma i siromašnim ljudima je puno teže zapravo integrirati se u društvo jer nemaju neke sustave podrške kao u većim gradovima. Jučer je s nama podijelila zapravo i svoje iskustva iz Totnesa. To možda nije primjenjivo na Zagreb. Ono je grad od 5000 stanovnika, mi smo malo veći, ali je pričala o projektu re-ekonomija. Re-ekonomija je nešto neprevedivo, mi smo preveli kao dobra ekonomija i zapravo danas se time bavimo.
Re-economy is about rebalancing the economies that we have, but at a local scale. So what we're saying is that there are 4 key challenges that we're facing as humanity, really, and they're all interlinked. And they are that we have an economy which is skewed the wrong way. So we emphasise growth and big business as being the answer to what we need. And what we're arguing is that actually it's the smaller economy, it's the small businesses that work together that give us our resilience in the face of things like climate change and depletion of fossil fuels.
Kako početi razvijati tranzicijski grad?
Well, I think what we started to do is take a step back from that idea of the big economy and where we've got to and just say, what is our economy actually for? Is it for, maximisation of profit, or is it actually to enable people to live fulfilling lives? And so where I am in Totnes in Devon, which is in the southwest of England, we asked that question. And although people were from very different backgrounds and they had different perspectives on the way the world works, they all agreed that actually the economy should be for the well-being of people. It should be enable people to trade and meet their needs in a more fulfilling way. And that's happening in lots of places. That those conversations are happening and the same answer is coming out.
I think it's first to realize what are our needs as a community. So let's take a little village, for example, to say, okay, we need food, we need water, we need energy, we need maybe transport. And to say, today, where does it come from? It's interesting. There was a girl from the UK yesterday, you will interview her, Frances, who said in the UK, 97% of the food is bought in big supermarkets, and most of it is imported. So England has absolutely no food autonomy. I think it's better in Croatia. So it's about how can I in my community try to satisfy those needs. So for example, by having more people doing farming, by producing our own energy, by helping each other building our houses, or having, how do you think you have materials around you like wood and so on to build your own houses without having to import from everywhere. And obviously you will not manage to do everything, but to start with small steps to become what we call resilient. So it doesn't mean autonomy, it just means that if you got a big shock one day, for example, there's no more oil or there's a big financial crisis like there is now almost every year, my community will resist more to that shock.
So the origin of the word transition in our context was the founder, Rob Hopkins. He was a permaculture teacher and he became interested in the concept of peak oil and the idea that we've reached all the cheap and easy oil that we're going to get to, but everything that we have, the world that we live in, is based on an endless supply of cheap energy through fossil fuels. So if that's not going to happen anymore, we need to transition to a better world by using less energy.
There is a worldwide network that was created in the UK because that's where what they call transition has started in the UK. So, and now I'll take the example of France. In France, there are about 100 towns who started a transition initiative, but they only started 2 or 3 years ago, so they have done not a lot so far. And there are people who can go and get trained in the UK, for example, and then they become transition trainers, so they can also help the local groups with methodologies.
In Totnes, the way it started was that people started to come together to listen to talks and see films and things that kind of raised their awareness about the situation that we're in. And from there, they we held a big meeting where there are 7,500 people in Totnes, and about 500 people came to this meeting. And the idea is to say, what could we do together? What is it that we can do practically on the ground in our local area? And that will look different in different places. But what people did was they formed into working groups, and they looked at food, and some people looked at transport, other people looked at business and building and housing, how we might build and house ourselves differently. And from there they all started smaller projects which have grown from there. So with food, people started sharing gardens. So people had big gardens and other people wanted to grow food, so we matched them together. People started guerrilla gardening, so just planting of edible plants wherever, by bus stops and in churchyards and schools. And also people started to meet together who were actually already existing local food producers and started to meet and form a cooperative together. We call it the gift economy, so different forms of exchange. And I think at the start it was just time. People just shared their time. But very quickly a local currency emerged, the Totnes pound. And it was one of the first in the UK, although there are many across the world. And it's backed by sterling, so a Totnes pound is worth a UK pound, and people use it in businesses so they can shop with it, and then they can also use it for external businesses, so window cleaners and accountants and the support services. But it keeps the money circulating locally, because what we know is that if money stays in the local area and doesn't go out through big shops, then it circulates more times, it has more velocity.
I don't have the recipe for it, and there's no miracle. Yes, but I think it's first building awareness of people. So there's a lot of ways to do that now. There are a lot of very good videos being made on, what are the challenges of our world, how do things really work. People don't know how, for example, money is being made and is being built. So when you put your money in a bank, you don't really know where it goes. So when you start to be informed about this, you think, maybe I should think about doing it differently. The same if you know where the food you eat or the products you buy come from and how they are made, maybe you can start thinking, there might be other ways to do it. So it's first building awareness, and then trying to find a group of people who are motivated to do something, and then try to do a diagnosis of your community and its needs, as I was saying before. So what is the current situation and what we would like in the future to be better together and to be more autonomous, and also with money. I mean, all these things cost a lot of money. So if people are in difficult situations financially, by helping each other to recycle things, reuse things, give things to each other, like books and furniture, people throw away, here probably less, but in France people throw away, they change their furniture every 5 years because it's not nice anymore.
Officially, because people can register, we think, we know there are thousands, but like in Japan, there are 4 official ones, but we know anecdotally there are about 40 or 50. And in Sweden, there are also about 5 or 6 registered, but there are about 70. So there are transition towns everywhere, because the beauty of it is that people don't have to ask permission to do it. It's not a franchise. It's not, people don't have to get permission. They can just start, they take the ideas. And what's lovely is that one place will have an idea, so somewhere in, Australia could have an idea, and it spreads, and then somebody would take it up in Chile or wherever. But it's appropriate to them for where they live.
U Hrvatskoj je tipično da to jako često pokreću udruge. Recimo, udruga Akt iz Čakovca je već pokrenula više projekata društvenog poduzetništva koji zapravo i sufinanciraju udrugu, a i čine dobre stvari u zajednici. Od recikliranja tekstila do sada što se pokreće, recimo, biodinamičke poljoprivrede i isto tako restorana koje korisnici socijalne zadruge zapravo nude za zajednicu. Isto tako imamo primjere volonterskih inicijativa, od popravljanja bicikala do baš razmjena među korisnicima udruga. Postoje i neki obrti, male obiteljske firme koje isto tako posluju po našoj definiciji dobre ekonomije, a to bi, da ponovim, zapravo bila ekonomija koja omogućuje zajednicama da budu što samostalnije što se tiče i proizvodnje hrane, energije i razmjene unutar zajednice, da nisu ovisne o velikim centraliziranim sistemima.
If you start to do small step to help each other and maybe also to teach each other some skills, because we are not equipped to do things anymore. We don't know how to use our hands anymore, and a lot of older generations have learned how to repair things, how to make them longer, etc. So skills sharing is also something that can be quite useful and also create links in the community, especially between generations.
The Transition Network, which is based in the UK, where we are, and but now there are national hubs that are starting up, and so there's one in Croatia. That's what the conference partly is about today. That ZMAG have become the hub for transition in Croatia to encourage more transition towns to start. And so those hubs can then take on forming links and solidarity where they are.